What's up, NAIA Report Nation? It's your boy Manny here, and welcome to another edition of the Hoop Report, the NAIA Women's Basketball Podcast, episode 32. Got a coaches interview here. Going to try and get a lot more of these coaches interview now that we're kind of in the holiday break, and a lot of teams are going to be not really playing, stuff like that. So I think it's a great time to get some of these coaches interviews, especially with some, like I have today, top coaches in the country with some of the standout teams of the fall-winter semester here. Like I mentioned, one of them is here. I told her before we got recording. I'm going to say it again. This is one that's been on my bucket list since the summer, and I'll get into why exactly. But I'm very excited to have Coach Madilyn Wallace from the Evangel Valor. Coach Wallace, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I talked about it, and I'm going to get right into it. A big reason was this is not the first time. Well, this is the first time we've officially met, but I met you scrolling through my phone one day on TikTok, and that was kind of a surreal thing. And I was like, oh, I gotta have Coach on. I gotta definitely. So we're definitely gonna get into the TikTok. Definitely gonna get into all that kind of stuff. And we'll start there. You know, like I said, I met you on TikTok, going through one of your outfit of the day in your last season while you were coaching on the sideline and stuff. And I went to the page. I was like, oh, this is Coach from Evangel. I got over 21,000 followers. You have a great following on social media. I just, obviously it's focused on basketball and content, all that kind of stuff. But do you have a favorite post? Do you have something that kind of you go back to a lot of times? Obviously, I see you got 3 of them pinned up there. So is there a favorite one on there?
Honestly, it was just a fluke thing. I always like to say I'm kind of growing up with my players. So I started coaching at the collegiate level. I got at 26, got my first head coaching job. And so I like a lot of the things that my players also like. And then, with that too, I always have fun with fashion, and I've always kind of done that even when I was in elementary school growing up. It's something that's always been fun for me, and I was the kid that loves fashion and played basketball and just kind of all the things. And so whenever I started coaching high school ball, I started kind of dressing up a little bit, kind of getting into my groove. And then as I entered the collegiate level, that was just something that I kind of brought with me. And one day, just a fluke post blew up, and then all of a sudden these people started following me and asking me for my outfit details. And yeah, it's pretty cool. I never imagined something like that for me, but it's been fun, and it's a platform where I can just kind of keep things lighthearted and keep that side of things, because the reality is basketball, there are multiple sides to it, and it is very serious. But I'm also just a person, and I also want to act my age, but also be professional at the same time. And I think TikTok kind of showcases that.
And that was literally my next question. On a more serious note, how has the TikTok aspect, especially in the day and age that we live now with social media, such a big thing when it comes to recruiting, finding players, whatever the case is, how has that kind of affected your coaching career? Has it just been more of an avenue to let off some steam, just kind of be relaxed, or has it been even deeper than that throughout your career?
I think, yeah, it is more of like an avenue of fun and relax and stuff like that. But I have had like some people reach out to me asking about coaching opinions. And so I do have some videos out there just, giving advice for kids that are struggling with confidence and this, that, and the other. So it is a little bit of both, but really the TikTok's just for fun.
We love it. We love it. Again, that was so much fun. I definitely wanted to touch on that one. But now to the basketball, because for me, maybe you don't talk about it, maybe you haven't seen it, but I have been riding your guys' wave since day one in the KCAC. I've loved it from the preseason. I've loved it from the first game of the season, and you guys have made me look like a genius. So I appreciate you guys for making me look good at this. But obviously, you guys have had one of the most just amazing seasons in program history, as well as in the country right now, being a receiving votes team, doing all these type of things. But I want to know, what do you think the heartbeat of this success has been? I mean, right now you guys are undefeated in conference play. You've only lost, I believe, 1 game on the season. I think you're 10-1 overall, 7-0 in conference. So what do you attribute that success to? Is it one thing? Is it a lot of things? Is it an intangible thing? Just where it had that success really come from in your eyes?
I mean, I do really think it is a combination of a lot of things, but the one thing I always go back to and I talk about over and over and over again is our defense. Our defense is our heartbeat. We are forcing over 25 turnovers a game right now. And really, that is what gets us going on the offensive end, too. And so I think a lot of people see big numbers on the board as far as points go, and they think, oh, this is like an offensive driven team. But to be honest with you, we're really not. We're defensive driven. And that is what's creating more offensive opportunities for us. And that's what what is really creating our heartbeat.
I mean, and that's crazy for you to say because that was the first thing, and I'm sure you knew we were going to talk about the offense because you all have one of the best offenses in the country, not just the conference. I mean, you're on a streak right now of 4 straight 100-point games. You've had 5 total this season. You're one of 7 teams, I think now 6 teams actually, since the time of recording this, who is averaging over 90 points this season. You're 4th right now in the country. Like, there's just so much offense. So to hear you say the defense, it's refreshing, to be honest with you, but it is a little interesting. Where does the defense benefit the offense? Well, what about your defense has allowed you to create such a just unbelievable and efficient offense throughout the season so far?
I'd say ball pressure and communication. Really, everything that we do is centered around that. And so I always call it we run a system that is organized chaos. And so every time that we enter the floor, that's something that you can expect from us. Yeah, you look at the numbers and you think, holy cow, over 100 points 4 times in a row. And that's fantastic. And I promise you, that's not something that, we're writing on the wall in the locker room, like hit 100 points. No, it's just something that's kind of happening because we run a system that gets a lot of people involved. And I think with that, that's showing up in the stats too. Our past 2 games, we have had 6 players in double digits, and that's just not something that you see very often.
No, absolutely. And on the offense side, specifically sticking on that, it's your first season at Evangel. Obviously, it's not your first season coaching college, but it is your first season at Evangel. And so, no matter how long you've been coaching in college, whenever you're at a new situation, it's hard to create the offense that you want. It's definitely hard to get the system down, get the scheme down, that kind of stuff. But you've done it. You've done it, hit the ground running. So my question on the offense side of things is how? How have you created such a smooth offense in only your first year at one of the more, I think, undervalued but extremely tough conferences in the country?
I just have to credit my players. So first of all, they put in the work over the summer. They were in all the time. They were getting their shots up. They were getting up and down in open gyms. They were conditioning. And so really the credit goes to them because all the work that they put in is really showing up to this point. Then it was my job to just come in and give them something that was simply a guide for the skill set that they had already developed. And so, with that, our offensive system has a lot of freedom within it. Of course, we have sets, we have plays, we have all the things, but I do think with the personnel that we have, organized freedom is what they really needed. And that's what has led to us being successful because ultimately we have a group of players that, first of all, we are deep, but second of all, they're very selfless and they're willing to get one another involved every single night.
No, absolutely, and I've seen that with my own 2 eyes a lot this year. On the other side of it, from the offensive side, is the pace. I do think the pace you all are playing at is very impressive, and it's hard to do for a quarter, 2 quarters, let alone a full 40, which I think is a credit to your conditioning that you've had them do that they can't last that long. What was the message when it comes to pace? Because I know in this day and age in basketball, everybody wants to play fast. Everybody wants to run a gun. Everybody wants to do all these type of things, but they don't really know how to do it and the correct ways to do it. So what was your message that was a little different that you think really resonated with the players about, yes, we want to play fast, but this is exactly what we mean by playing fast?
Yeah, and I mean, I once again, I know that like that's an offensive question, but it really does root back to our defense because the defense is what establishes that offensive tempo. It establishes our transition buckets, and it really establishes our dribble drive on the offensive end. Even if we don't get something in transition, we have things that we just naturally kind of fall into. And so that's really the fast pace. That's what it's given us. It's given us those opportunities, and once again, with the depth that we have, that's something that works for us.
Absolutely. And like I mentioned, this isn't your first year coaching at the college level. It's also not your first year in the KCAC. You obviously have a very rich history there. You played at Vila, I believe it was, and then you transferred over to obviously Evangel, where you graduated and an alum, and now you are back there. Just talk to me about that part of it first. Well, what is it? What is it like to be able to coach at your alma mater? Was it like to not only be coaching here, but successful coaching career? Very short, obviously, but a successful coaching career and a successful start to it. Just talk a little bit about that perspective, because I know a lot of people would love to do that. A lot of people have also done that. So just talk about your perspective on it.
I mean, it's really cool. Obviously, I think that anybody that's in this situation would feel the same way. I will tell you, and I say this all the time, that I had no idea that I was going to be a basketball coach, let alone at the collegiate level. And so, whenever I graduated from college, I was like most 22-year-olds, just wondering what was going to happen in my life next. And I graduated with a communications degree, and so I was interested in social media and marketing and public relations and things like that. And then it just kind of led me down this avenue where I was really searching for my purpose. And that was something that I was really heavy on in prayer. And one day a JV high school coaching position opened up, and then it became more. It became a college coaching position. And then now I'm at my alma mater. And it just happened all so quickly because the reality is I did graduate from Evangel in 2018. And here we are in 2025. And that really isn't that long ago. And so I feel very blessed with the opportunity. It is honestly the biggest blessing I've ever received. And it's something that I will never take for granted every day. I love it. I love my girls, and I'm just really thankful for it all. But as far as like being in the KCAC, this actually is my first time in the KCAC because when I played, I was in the heart. And so some of the opponents are similar there though. And so there's connections through that, transferring from Avila, and now we play against Avila all the time. And then just meeting the coaches through the KCAC and developing these new relationships along the way has been really great as well.
No, absolutely. And from the coaching side of things, for the past 3 years, you were at Mission in the American Midwest. Last year, you went from 8 wins the previous year that you got there to 19 wins for your first year there, and you continued to create such a successful program in that conference, and last year being a 3rd seed and then getting to the quarterfinals. What did you take from that Mission experience and that short stint that you brought over to Evangel? What was it from the good, from the bad, just kind of the experience that you feel prepares you for moments that you have dealt with already through this year at Evangel?
Ooh, there's a lot. But, it was a really interesting situation over at Mission because they were doing a rebuild of athletics. And so whenever I was hired, I was the 3rd coach in 3 years. And so coming in, I took over that program, and they went from an 8-win to a 10-win team. And then the year after that, that was my first recruiting class. And so in my second year, I had my first recruiting class in. And those kids really, more than anything, laid the foundation not only for Mission, but for me and my coaching journey. I was very blessed with wonderful kids in my first recruiting class that were really bought into the concept of playing fast and playing in organized chaos. And they took that team from a 10-win team to a 19-win team, and they went to the NCCAA national tournament for at the Division 1 level of NCCAA for the first time in program history, and they placed 6th. And so we knew then that we really had something going. And so then came my second recruiting class, and that was last season. And so last season we were 25-7, first year as an NAIA team. So a lot of history happening there. And we finished 3rd in the AMC, and then we were NCCAA national runners up. And so like I said, Mission, really, I credit them and pretty much every player that ever walked through that program while I was there to the success that I am seeing now, that my girls are seeing now, that my staff is seeing now, because ultimately, the relationships is what has made me love this so much and is what has made me so invested. And so the biggest thing I think Mission probably instilled in me was the grittiness and the grind. And, in the AMC conference, the level of opponent was really, really strong last year. So we had Columbia College, and we had Williams Baptist, Stevens College, Cotty College. Those 5 were really, really intense. And so I learned a lot, not only about how to operate programs behind the scenes, but also just about myself and how I can be better to have relationships with players, and also just about what players need. I think like the biggest thing overall, and I always say this, at Mission, we proved that you can really build a family anywhere. It doesn't matter what it looks like, essentially, because really you can build a family under any roof. So very, very thankful for that.
Absolutely. And now going back to your first stint in what was the Heart, a Heart member, I should say. When you look back at Evangel from 2018 to 2025 now, when you're there and looking at it now through different eyes, being a faculty, being a coach, all those type of things, everybody always asks you, I'm sure you've gotten this question so many times, what's the same or what's different or stuff like that. But I want to know about what is the same. Like typically, obviously, you think about change as time has gone on, even in a short time that we've talked about right now. But what has stayed the same? Well, what things really can you come back to, you kind of gave you that, I'm back and back here for the first time, gave you some flashbacks, gave you some deja vu moments. What were those aspects or those experiences so far that you've kind of gone off of?
I would say more than anything, the same mission, the same vision. Whenever you work for a faith-based institution, that is something that remains a constant. And so coming in, that has really been the same, and that's something that I can carry over as my, experience as a student. Now I can relate to the students because I have literally been in their shoes. But also with that, there's the physical things that are the same too. So there's a lot of places on campus that still look the same, or we'll walk into the Ashcroft Center, the previous place where we used to play for forever, and we'll occasionally have a practice in there, and I'll feel all the nostalgia and all the memories of that building. And so yeah, there is a lot that is the same, but there's a lot that's different too.
No, absolutely. And kind of I read this somewhere. I don't know if I read it or if I saw it. Obviously last year when you played at Mission, you ended up playing, I believe, was it against Evangel in the beginning of the year,
Yeah.
which was technically like their first time in that gym. So I can only imagine kind of that aspect of it too, where while you weren't a player or you weren't coached just yet, you being there for their first time in that gym and now you coaching in that gym, I'm sure definitely holds a little bit of a nice moment there that I'm sure how was that moment? How was that moment being there? Obviously you're focusing on the game, you're focusing on getting the win, but it can be easy to get kind of caught up in the moment from a personal standpoint. So just kind of walk us through that day and what it felt like for you.
Oh man, that day was amazing, honestly. It was pretty intense. But we knew at Mission that we were going to be walking into a big challenge, because in no reality does somebody open up a brand new multi-million dollar arena and they not, want to win the game. So we knew it was going to be a difficult challenge, but my team was prepared. They were really bought in. We had multiple film sessions. We had several practices tailoring for the game. And so walking in that day, even though like the intensity is behind the situation, I knew that we were prepared and ready for that moment. And, walking in there for the first time, of course, as an alum, I was like, man, they should have done this sooner when I was here. But I'm so glad that they did. And it was fun. And it was a huge victory for us at Mission. And it really ignited the rest of that season that we went 25-7. So overall, it was a really special moment, just for me as an individual, but also for those players.
Before we talk about players that have really stood out this year and some that maybe you would love to give a little bit more recognition to, I want to know, you talked about it a few times, through these questions about how you've wanted to put in this system, how you wanted to put in the defense, the offense, all that type of stuff. What would you, again, this podcast, while it is a platform for the players and the coaches, it's also for those who are looking to get into coaching, who wanted to learn a little bit more about the NAIA level. How would you give those coaches that advice of how to put in the offense that they want? We all have an idea in our head. Hey, I want to run a pick and roll based offense. I want to run 5 out. I want to run 4 out, 1 in, whatever it is. But it's not always easy to express that, to get that message across. So what have you learned that has really helped you in that process to be able to create a environment where the players feel empowered to, as you say, be free, but you still give them a little bit of structure to be able to help throughout those moments throughout a tough game?
I think that there's a lot of things that can really contribute to that aspect, but the biggest one, and I think a lot of coaches would agree with this, is we need to recruit for the system that we're seeking. And so with that, that's probably like the biggest piece. But the second piece of that is not just the strategic part, but it really lies in recruiting good people. And with that, if you have kids that are coachable, teachable, and they're willing to put in the work outside of practice, in the summer, in the preseason, in the postseason, those are the kids that are ultimately not just bought into themselves, but they're going to be bought into team concepts as well. And I think that's really just the big piece for any offense or any defense that you could ever want to run.
No, absolutely. And now we're talking about some of those players because there's plenty of hoopers on this team that we can touch on. Obviously, we're not going to get to everybody, unfortunately, but I do want to start with Heaven Shockley. Leader in points with about 15 per game, almost 16. I'm going to round up for her because she's earned it. 7.6 rebounds. She's had 3 double-doubles on the season and has only scored under 10 points 2 times. So we talk about benefiting from the system and recruiting for the system. She clearly has been one of those players that benefits from the style you guys play. But what makes her that engine on the offensive side of the ball? I would definitely say she's more of that hub where things kind of facilitate and run through her. So what allows her to be that person for a team that's receiving votes right now in the national poll, and I believe will be in the top 25 when these next polls come out in a few days?
Really for Heaven, there's a multitude of things, but I think for her specifically, she just has such a versatile skill set for her position that most people don't really see. So most people see a 6 foot forward and they think, oh yeah, that's a great post player. Heaven doesn't really fit in that box, truthfully. She has a great jump shot. She can trail and hit the three. She has the ability that if she catches the rebound, sometimes she's going to lead us in the transition break. And so with that, like, I just think that Heaven has more specialties to her skill set sometimes than she even realizes. But you can't put Heaven in a box, and that's just really a big part of that. As far as being the engine, sometimes she is, but I have to be honest with you. With our depth, I feel like everybody is an engine at times, and so just really, really proud of them and how they welcomed Heaven over with open arms. Or what she does wouldn't be possible without them.
No, absolutely. And from the shock of this Valor team, Sue, I like to say the grad who put G in guard because Cassidy Hambleton has had an amazing season. Multiple double doubles this year, averaging 13, but a team leading 6 assists with 3 steals to boot, and a true two-way player. And when you have a system like this, at the end of the day, and it's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason, the point guard is an extension of the coach. And to have an offense, you cannot have that without that relationship between player and coach at that one spot. So what is it about having her be the point guard in offense that I know is very free-flowing and it ain't really too many positions, but having her out there kind of give you that relief of she knows what I want to do in certain moments, and then when she doesn't, I'm able to guide her very more of a nudge, not necessarily a push, more of a nudge in the right direction. Just talk a little bit about having her out there as a member of this Ballard team.
Yeah, Cassidy is very much a lead by example type of player. And with being that type of person too, the thing that is so crazy about it all is, this is my fourth season coaching and this is my fourth year with Cassidy Hambleton. And so we've grown through this together and we've learned each other, and she understands the expectations. So sometimes I don't even have to say anything. She already knows. But Cassidy is one of those players that honestly, she's one of the most selfless that I have ever seen, and she's going to give you whatever is needed that day. And so I think, for example, earlier this year we played against Tabor and we were having a tough shooting day, probably our one of our worst shooting days of the year. But Cassidy put the game on her back and she scored 29 points. Other games you're going to see her give out double digit assists. Other games you're going to see her have 6 steals. And so with that, Cassidy, she is going to give the team whatever the team needs that day. And having that in leadership is special.
No, absolutely. I mean, when you're averaging a positive assist to turnover ratio of 2.7 and you clearly have control of a Ferrari, because that's what this offense is, you have to be able to be a Swiss Army knife. And talking about some of her games, she had a recent game, I want to say might have been against Ottawa, where that stat line looked video game like. It was absolutely impressive. Are there any other players that you definitely want to highlight from the season that they've had? Maybe not from a scoring standpoint, maybe not from a number standpoint, but just their intangibles that have really been felt, whether in the locker room, on the court, on the bench, whatever the case is. Just any of those players that really come to mind throughout the season so far?
Yeah, honestly, I could go on, but I'm going to name a couple right here. The first one's going to be Carson Dillard. Carson, in my opinion, is one of the most elite 3-point shooters within this conference. And with that, though, she also has a phenomenal court vision, and she is a way better passer than anybody gives her credit for. Because honestly, she sees the floor incredibly well. She passes the ball well in transition. Carson is a constant and a good sounding voice for us. Next is Ali Kamis. Ali was KCAC Newcomer of the Year last year, and she is one of the strongest, like physically strongest guards that I have ever seen in her position. She works incredibly hard, but also she has a special elevation to her game that allows her to do the little things like get offensive rebounds or, even with that, just rise above somebody and shoot in the mid range and make shots over them. And so her versatility and her game really, really makes her special. And then Cami Jenkins, I think Cami and Heaven are the best forwards in the conference. And of course, I'm incredibly biased by saying that, but she and Heaven are both absolutely phenomenal, both together and separate. And I feel like Cami is by far one of the better rebounders that I have ever coached. She always is going to give consistent effort and energy, and she's just been playing incredibly well. Two players, actually three players that have been coming off the bench for us. One that has been in a starting position a couple times, that just give us great energy are Brooklyn Kirby, Alyssa McCarty, and Lydia Babidier. All three are totally different players, all have very special things about them. Brooklyn has an incredible mid range game. She's also a phenomenal passer. She's somebody that honestly, I feel like she can create for anybody anytime that she wants to. So it's not just her ability to score, but her ability to find people to score as well. And then Lydia and Alyssa, they are hustlers. They are after every single O board. They are up in the full. They are creating the organized chaos for us. They lead that. And so Alyssa's going to go down and she's going to take a charge, or Lydia's going to get the ball in transition and hit you with a euro. That's just who they are. And so there are many other players that contribute to our success. But I'm just really, really proud of both my transfers, my freshmen, my returners, all of them combined. How they've come together has been beautiful, and it's not perfect, and we still have a lot of work to do. But very, very proud of each and every one of them.
No, absolutely. And that's another part that I wanted to talk about. With you coming over from Mission, obviously you have some players who did play with you at Mission, and then you have some returners from Evangel, plus a few new players from recruits from a freshman standpoint or transfer standpoint. What was that like? What was it like having to combine, kind of your past with your present as well as your future all at the same time, all under the same roof within those four lines? And talk about, there have been some rough days, but talk about those days that kind of turned it for you, though, those days that you look back on now, granted, we're maybe about midway through the season, if you want to say that, or, in December, but talk about it now where you look back at those moments earlier in the summer and in preseason, like, this is what I knew we would get to at some point throughout the year.
Oh man, it was a journey, and leaving Mission for me personally was not an easy decision because that was something that I had poured my entire heart and soul into building. And so with that, I think that whenever I came over to Evangel, the people that came with me and Cassidy and Heaven, I think that really I just can't thank them enough because that showed their trust in me, and I completely trusted them too. So I was very, very thankful for that, and I think that the thing that we all carried over was just number one, an excitement, but number two, we knew what we were here to do, and we knew that we were walking into an Evangel squad that was not only very talented but had endless possibilities. And so yeah, it's been a good transition, and I think everybody that is both new and was already here has done an excellent job of gelling together and really buying in.
No, absolutely. And now looking a little bit ahead to the season, obviously this is going to come out, they're going to be listening to this Monday morning. You have an exhibition lined up on Tuesday. And then after that, it's straight KCA play. It's straight conference play. There's no non-conference schedule, no non-conference game left. And I just wanted to ask you, what was the focus behind that? A lot of times it's pretty much one of two sides of the same coin, where the coaches like to do one or two non-conference games, nothing crazy, obviously, once the springtime comes around, or like yourself, we do strictly conference games. We want to focus on that part of our schedule. Why did you lean to that ladder? Why did you decide, hey, we're going to focus strictly within conference? We want to go, every single game is going to be about this conference because for whatever reason. What was that reason? What was that motivation?
I really wanted to front load our schedule just a little bit, just because I felt like if we put the majority of our non-conference here in the beginning and we stacked it with like hard opponents. So for example, Columbia, Stevens, the two Division twos that we're playing against, College of the Ozarks, with that, I knew that we would start building the experience that we were going to need to carry us through a conference season. Also, with that too, it's a conscious decision about keeping people healthy, and we want to make sure that we're taking care of our bodies and physically staying on the right path. So that's kind of why we did things that way. And we're really excited that whenever we come back from Christmas, we know that every single game, day in and day out, is an important one. And so, which we already have that mentality anyways, but really the second semester is where champions are made. And that's something that we instill in each other all the time. So, while we're moving with great pace right now, we are very realistic that there's going to be ups and downs moving forward, but what matters is who's playing in March. And so the goal every day is just to get there and be the absolute best that we can possibly be.
Before we talk about this winning streak and how you have all been successful, I do want to touch on the conference as a whole. I've said it, and again, maybe you're not saying it to the ladies, which is understandable, but to me, you all are the favorites to win the regular season. The numbers prove it, the numbers show it, and that's kind of what I'm just going to leave it at right there. But with that comes obviously a big target. It becomes a big pressure. Even just being with the record you guys are at, teams want to be that one to knock you guys off, rightfully so. That's a nice little notch under their belt. In a conference where we've already seen a lot of upsets, most notably I think was that Bethany over Ottawa game that went down literally to the last shot, and we've had some close ones just like that. What is it like being in a conference where you are looked at with that big target? You are the hunted because of where you are in the standings, because of where you've been throughout the season. Just talk about how you've been talking to the ladies about dealing with that pressure, that mental fatigue of you cannot have a day off because that one day, that team that comes in, maybe on a losing streak, maybe not playing well, they see you on the schedule, that's what's going to get them going. That's what's going to get them right. So just talk about how you've helped the ladies kind of deal with that level of pressure or level of attention, I should say, from their opponents.
Honestly, basically everything you just said is something that I've instilled in them a million times. But we talk about the target and we talk about it often. We're very thankful for the recognition that we've gotten and for people, predicting us to be first and all the things. But we did have to operate from the scope of we haven't done anything yet, because at that point when all of this was coming out, everything was still so fresh and so new. We were still developing our system. We were still learning each other, getting more comfortable with one another, and that's both from an on-court and coaching perspective. And so, with that, we have instilled the mentality of we haven't done anything yet. And so, every game that we enter into, it doesn't matter who the opponent is. We're going to treat it like a national championship, and that's the way it should be. Because if we can continue to play like that, then whenever we do get to those points where it's going to be the big games, it's going to feel the same intensity wise. And I think that realistically, we should get everybody's best shot, regardless if we're number one or not, because you're going to get ours, right? So that's just who we are. That's what we talk about. And I'm, aware that mentality isn't always consistent and it's not always perfect. But we do have a lot of maturity in this group. We have a lot of seniors, a lot of juniors, and so they're bought in and they're ready for that.
And speaking of that, uh, maturity, I think is a perfect word to describe you all on this winning streak because it's very easy to get a couple in a row. You're playing really well. Things can kind of start looking a little less than ideal in terms of execution, in terms of accountability, whatever the case is, and that's normal. Again, it's a very long season that the ladies have to deal with, but that hasn't been the case. If anything, it's been the complete opposite. What have you seen from this group that has allowed them to they never seem satisfied. Like they seem hungry. Like they've had a chip on their shoulder all year. So where does that come from? Is that a you to them thing? Is that just the way that they are built and the cloth that they're cut from? Like where has this team's hunger come from that seems to never be satisfied? And no matter how much they get, they still want more. They still know that there's bigger pictures and bigger mountains to climb throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think that honestly, it's a lot of those things that you mentioned, but also it's a one day at a time mentality. Um, the reality of everybody's season is everybody's getting better, right? And so we just have to make sure that regardless of how much we win by or whatever, we're learning something that day and we're growing from it every single day. And so, yeah, all those things that you said, but also a day by day mentality.
And the other question I have for you for this winning streak, for you and your staff. What has it been like? What is the attention to detail? What is the preparation that goes into all these games that has allowed you to be 10-1, allow you to be perfect in conference? Like what is that behind the scenes that you can give us a little peek to that has allowed for such a great team throughout this 2 month span, really?
Honestly, this might be one of my favorite questions because my staff is like my family to me, and I mean that. So each individual on my staff has contributed to a different part of my life. And so bringing them over to Evangel with me has just been incredibly special. And whenever you have people on your staff that are like family to you, not only do they know your personal expectations, but they also just know you as a person. And I know them as people. And I think that for us, it's been a really special experience. My assistant, Hannah Woodcock, has been my assistant at Mission for the past 2 years. And so she came over here with me. And then Micaiah Brooks, she graduated from Drury University last year, played at both Memphis and Drury. She's Springfield, Missouri's all time leading scorer. She's my director of player development and also one of my assistant coaches. She was on the first high school team that I ever coached. And so it was one of those things where I had the special opportunity to coach her at the age 16, and now she gets to stand by my side and continue to articulate the vision together. And then my grad assistant is Josie Sullivan, who is one of our leading scorers at Mission the past several seasons, and she scored 2,000 points in her college career. And once again, somebody that knows me, knows my system, and came over with that experience. And so I think for my staff, this season has been really, really special so far, not just because of the wins or because of all of the numerical things, but because we genuinely love each other. And I'm just really, really thankful for them every single day because we couldn't do what we do without them.
And I got two questions for you. This one, kind of a question that has been the theme pretty much in every single one of your answers. Why is relationships so important to you? What have you gone through, or what have you seen in your own personal experiences that has made you decide, no matter what school I'm at, no matter if I'm playing, coaching, if I'm at the high school level, the college level, wherever I'm at in my life personally, I want to make sure the relationships are at the forefront of everything that I'm doing. Why has that been the message that I have seen throughout these questions and answers that I can see on the court between your staff, between your players, between everybody? Just why is it about the relationship aspect of just life in general?
Honestly, because without these relationships, I wouldn't be here. And I know that that's just like a plain blanket answer, but it's true. Whenever I tell people that I never intended to be a basketball coach, let alone to be a collegiate one, I genuinely mean that. I felt like God called me to this profession, and I feel like each individual that He has placed in my program or on my staff along the way has been very, very intentional. I coach from a scope of love. And it's really just who I am. Like nothing has really happened to cause that. I think that I did go through a lot as a player that maybe molded a lot of that. But it's the relationships that make everything worth it. The light bulb moments, seeing things click in people's heads, and just seeing it translate from practice to a game. All those little things make it worth it. And it's also important to recognize that, relationships aren't always going to be perfect either. And so we're going to have the ebbs and flows and the roller coaster moments. But with each individual that plays for me or coaches alongside me, the goal is maybe I learn something more about them every single day, and I can inch them in a direction to where they're going to be successful. Because at the end of the day, that is what this is all about.
Absolutely. And before this last question, you said it a few times. You didn't know you were going to be a basketball coach. What would you be doing if you weren't playing a basketball coach? Would you be a fashion designer? I think that'd be great. I think you'd be amazing as a fashion designer. Just for the record, just for the record, maybe a social influencer. I'd follow. I would be following for sure. Is there is there a backup? Like what would have been the backup? I'm just curious. What would have been the backup if it wasn't?
Honestly, I really don't know. I think that what I was doing, I was getting ready to like get a real estate license, and I was gonna potentially actually do something with like fashion merchandising or fashion marketing because I did have a communications major in college. I really don't know though. I don't think that anything else could have ever been meant for me. I've never felt more purposeful than what I have felt in this profession, and I really can't not imagine doing anything else. But once again, that's just because of the people that God has brought me.
Right.
So
All I'm saying is, if my realtor looked like you, when I walk into that house, I'm buying on the spot. It is what where's the give me the dotted line because no, there's no way I'm not listening to her. There's no way. But last question I got
That's
for you here,
funny.
Coach. Obviously the goal is playing in March, playing for a KCAC title, playing for a national tournament appearance, a red banner, all that. Like that is the goal. But it is also your first season, and so I want to also take it away from the wins and losses and from the titles. What would a successful season be in your eyes, aside from those three things, aside from how the record looks when that final buzzer goes off, aside from where you end in terms of postseason time? What would be a successful season for you in your personal aspect of being a year one coach at this specific institution and all the stuff that kind of comes along with being a year one coach?
Yeah, and I think it's really important that success isn't measured in those things. I mean, nobody doesn't want to win, right? Like at the end of the day, we all want the banner and that's what we're going to strive for because that's what we're here for and I believe that our God is a God of excellence and that is what we are called to do is to be the best versions of ourselves every single day and to continue to represent the kingdom of God and from that we can continue to be lights of our faith and a vessel to the kingdom. But also, like the overall, I just want this to be a beginning of a legacy. This group is incredibly special, especially this senior and this junior group, and then we have sophomores and freshmen. You know, they're all developing in different phases of their basketball careers right now, and I want them to be able to look back and be like, wow, we were the first group to do X, Y, and Z. We were the first group to establish this type of culture. And really that's what this season is. I know it's not going to be perfect and perfection is never the expectation. But a perfect effort always is. And so as long as we give that perfect effort every single day, I think that the legacy that we're going to leave is going to pave a beautiful path for future Lady Valor. And beyond that, it's just a special season in general, just for me, personal reasons being back here. And it's a season of love for me. I've just expressed all my love for the people that are in my life here, and I'm very, very thankful.
No, Coach, I cannot thank you enough for this interview. Again, this was a bucket list one, and I was high on the bucket list. I'm not gonna lie to you. I appreciate the time. I'd say I'm on Evangel Island. I'm currently in the process of creating a country of it because I do think people are gonna start joining. I'm showing the fashion store. I'm getting them in on all that. So it's right now. I know there's be a lot of people that will be looking at this crew the next couple weeks as the season goes on, and I'd be very excited to watch. I have been from day one. I'll always be the popcorn. I'll always be popping when you guys are playing. I'm so excited. I really can't. Again, thank you enough for this time. You've had a successful season, and only gonna go up from here. But I appreciate the time for sure, Coach.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right, guys, that's gonna do it on this episode. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see y'all in the next one.